Nation Packer fans, welcome back to the Atrium at GreenBayPackerNation.com. Today is Thursday, December 3rd, and we are celebrating a big Thanksgiving Day win. A week ago, we know that even if the relatives were getting on your nerves or the kids were pulling at your shirt or the turkey was undercooked or dry, Thanksgiving Day was a success because the Packers won. Of course, beating the Lions 34-12 on Thanksgiving Day. This is a good win for the Green Bay Packers. A lot of Packers fans thinking this was perhaps going to be a trap game. It seems like the Lions come to those Thanksgiving Day games and play better than they usually do. And so I know some were worried perhaps that the Packers would drop the ball on this one, look past the Lions, or just come out flat because play down to their level of play. Excuse me, and the Packers didn't do so. It was actually quite a good game. It was good in the sense that it wasn't very fun to watch after a while. Although the Green Bay Packers should have been up by more, I think by half than they were. Personally, I was running in and out, making sure a turkey got done on time and properly. It turned out fine, but unfortunately the trade-off was I didn't get to see the game, had to go back. I didn't get to see all of the game. Had to go back and watch it on the game rewind to make sure I caught every detail of that Thanksgiving Day game. So we're going to talk about that game, go over pluses and minuses, of course, for that. We will talk about the playoff picture as it stands right now, look at Packers' remaining schedule, and then talk about the big game Monday night coming up against the Ravens. So let's jump right into it with pluses and minuses. And I'm going to start with minuses because there weren't too many in this game. It was a game full of pluses in a lot of ways, but you do have to put a minus. Jordy Nelson, the opening kickoff, fumbling it, leaving the ball to the Lions in the red zone, ended up being the only touchdown they scored. Not good at all. This is a continuing problem. We haven't been known for fumbling when in our return game in particular, but our special teams have been terrible. And once again, they go in the minus column. Did not do a good job again on Thursday. So you don't want to see Nelson doing that. It's a little bit. It's uncharacteristic of him in a sense. You expect him to be a very just solid sort of blue-collar player. I really think he just tried to get some extra yards and kind of forgot to cover the ball up. So hopefully that will be an easy correction by the coaching staff. And you know with Jordy Nelson, he's the kind of guy that will get that kind of stuff corrected. So we don't expect to see any of that going forward. Unfortunately, along with special teams, Mason Crosby missing, a 43-yard field goal. We cannot necessarily expect that to change, that we are not going to be able to be confident in our kicking game, our field goal unit for the rest of the season and into the playoffs if we make it that far. So that also, with the special teams, of course, goes into the minus column. The ground game, Ryan Grant had 20 carries, but only had 61 yards, I think. So the ground game, I'm going to put in the minus section, but I do want to qualify that a little bit. Going back, you watch the way this game played out, and you know how Ryan Grant is generally, he kind of starts maybe a little slow, but then he builds and gets better and better as the game goes on. Well, one thing surprising that happened in this game, one surprising thing, Ryan Grant came out on fire is what happened, you see. So it was a little bit like the Cincinnati game when Green Bay just could not stop the run for a period of time. So the defense then had to change, and what the defense did in the second half, they made adjustments that shored them up against Ryan Grant in the run and slowed him down later on in the game, which is uncharacteristic. On the other hand, what that did was very much open up Aaron Rodgers in the passing attack to have a ton of success. And so Ryan Grant did his job. I know our Quick Slant blog, we talked about how we're going to need Ryan Grant down the stretch because it's going to get cold at Lambeau. We are trying to make a playoff run, and the ground game is going to be so important. And at the tail end of that Quick Slant, the idea was, and we expect that out of Ryan Grant. And this is what happened to some extent in the Detroit Lions game. Even though he had low yards, he started out fast, and he forced the defense to change, which then opened up the passing attack. Now, if we can do that, we are going to see good things happen against much better teams And of course, they will be able to stop the run in general better, but kudos to Ryan Grant. Got to give him props and hope that that continues. I usually expect him to get better as the game goes on. And I'm putting it in the minus category because it's not enough yards. We'd like to see more yards out of that. But what I don't want to forget to mention is the fact that if Ryan Grant is a good enough running back that defenses have to adjust, and I say if, and that should be a first-class conditional because Ryan Grant is, since he's a good enough running back to cause defenses to adjust. It bodes well for the Green Bay Packers down the stretch, and this is going to be a difficult run of games that we have. But I am looking for continued success in the ground game. We are going to need to try and get the attempts up and try to get him over 100 yards. Would be great to see, in particular against games that have high-powered offenses. If we can keep Ryan Grant and our offense on the field, we can then, in turn, that takes those high-powered offenses. It takes the Brett Favres. It takes perhaps the Drew Breeses. These, kind of guys that we're going to come up against. Joe Flacco. Some of these guys keeps them off the field. So we look for better things. I'm putting it in the minus just because of the number of yards and the way that we kind of got shut down. But again, this is a very nuanced thing. I don't want to sound like I'm down on the ground game. I think it actually served its purpose. Just like to see it continue more. Also in the minuses, we've got to put the red zone offense. I mean, good grief, can we finish a drive, especially when Ryan Grant has some sensational runs right off the bat. First series we had. And then to see us miss field goals, have to kick field goals, we've been talking about how this team just needs to make sure that they have no reason to ever kick a field goal. We need to punch those balls into the end zone. We need to finish drives. It's something we've got to work on and have to be successful going into this stretch of games, and if we are successful in this stretch of games doing that, then we will be in the playoffs, and we have a chance to be somewhat more successful in the playoffs as well. So that's going to be very important. We did not do a good job, even though we ended up putting a lot of points on the board. There were some very sort of distressing drives where we would get so close to the end zone and then only to be shut out, and we don't want to see that happen. I did have one other that goes on the special teams, and that's the penalties again. We still have not shored up the penalties. On offense, we've done much better. Not as many false starts, not as many holds, this kind of thing. A lot of that has to do with Mark Tauscher coming back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But our special